Okay.
We're going to start again. This is on, you can hear me. Thank you all. Not only is this an incredibly engaged audience, it's also an incredibly punctual audience. So thank you for being back for our afternoon session at 2 o'clock sharp. I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, Mohamed Almusibli, whose name you see up on the screen. Mohamed has been Director and Chief Curator of Kunsthalle Basel since March 2024, so just over a year now. He previously served as co-founder and curator of the independently operated art space Cherish in Geneva. Between 2019 and 2023, Cherish hosted over 20 exhibitions, providing a platform for emerging local artists while also enabling several international artists to have their first presentations in Switzerland. In 2021, he organized the Almusibli Panorama, an extensive year-long online video program for the Centre d'Art Contemporain in Geneva, which concluded with the inaugural Swiss Moving Image Award. Most recently, Mohamed served as an advisor for the Hartwig Art Foundation in Amsterdam, and between 21 and 23, he was a lecturer in the MFA program at the École Cantonale d'Art de Lausanne. Mohamed holds an MFA himself from the Haute École d'Art in Geneva and a Bachelor of Arts in Media from the Zurich University of the Arts, and also studied art history and Arabic at the University of Geneva. So with that, welcome, Mohamed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you again, Priyanka and Pratik, for the invitation. So after this very full introduction, I just want to tell a bit about myself. I figured that's my first time in the country, so in a new context, I would like to tell you about how it started, for me at least. As you heard before, I initially studied history of art and Arabic at the University of Geneva. My main point of focus was medieval art, and I was kind of really into the miniatures and that we find in codex or like in books, and also the ones that we can find in like different illustrations that we can find in like religious books from the Quran or from like the Persian region, and so that kind of started my education in art and thinking about images, representation, but also in a small format as a publication. Or back then, the small format was very kind of like holding knowledge. So how can like this image and representation could be in it. And then I went on to do an internship that kind of changed my whole life at the Arab Image Foundation in Beirut, and where I was confronted to contemporary art for the first time, and the whole kind of like conceptual approach of it. And I realized at that moment that I wasn't a historian. I was less interested by history of art than having these direct conversations with artists and really thinking about what it means to produce art now and what is the whole like responsibility, but to engage with it. And so I finished my studies and went on to study like media theory in an art school in Zurich. And this is where I started to curate and putting on my own exhibitions really independently. Like I remember the first exhibition that I did was in a classroom, just with like some printed images of like photocopies of artworks that I would like to see together. But that kind of just started my whole journey as a curator and like as a exhibition making. And then on, I went back to Geneva to do my studies, and I opened a space for myself with my friends called Cherish. So Cherish came from the intention that we wanted a space, an exhibition space that kind of represented us a bit more than what we could see in the art landscapes in Europe. We didn't really have any budget or anything, but we had an apartment, and so we just decided to dedicate the living room into an exhibition space. I kind of like had to force my my flatmates, James Bonton, Thomas Lulolan, and Sarah Serpas to get along, because I was like, okay, we're doing it. So we have to, you're going to be co-founder too. And so we were lucky to have like this like really beautiful apartment in Geneva, and we could really, the idea of like having artists coming with us and to stay, we didn't want to just invite artists to build up a show and leave. We want them to stay with us for a bit, and so we took like one of the guest room into a residency space. So we never really called it like as an artist residency, but every artist invited were kind of like not obliged, but were like asked to stay for a month. Some of the people stayed like the month that they needed. Some others stayed for, I don't know, like 3 months. One artist ended up leaving and moving with us at the end. So it was really kind of having the space where really looking at art as something that is welcoming, something that you would feel good to be at and like to stay and then come back. And that really kind of, I think at that time in Europe and Switzerland really kind of changed a bit in terms of what we could see. I think even to start with the presentation and the logo of Cherish, we really wanted to have something kind of warm and inviting. I remember back then, I think many of the spaces, because of lack of budget, probably had like zero communication, and they were just like one name. The newsletter would be like the title of the show, an iPhone pictures, and that's it. And so we found this very kind of unwelcoming, and we wanted, if we were about to welcome people in our homes, we wanted them to feel like they could stay. And that was maybe another slide from like some types of exhibitions that we would have, and always starting with like new commission. This was an exhibition by a Geneva artist named Julia Esiad, and working about the idea of like portraitures, of like self-portraitures and structure. We had kind of little rules about the exhibitions or like the house, except one thing is that to leave the living room habitable. And so we had like two kind of elements in the living room that you will see. It's either like we had a couch or a dining table, and at each show one of the two could be like needed to be usable. So this one was the couch. There's no picture of the side of the room, but the entire dining table was like covered with a big cake sculpture that she did. But here we have like this artist Kaisa van Zijpel from New York that we invited and like really covered the whole space. So her exhibition was about thinking of like the artist in her studio and kind of dreaming and having her cats paint for her. And so, and so the whole kind of entire place was just used as a painting studio for the artist and the sculpture. And then this other artist, Shuang Li, who at this time covered the entire living room with the couch with these plastic balls, creating like this ball pit. But then we would have like the dining room always available. But this kind of like format of exhibition, but like also of more than exhibitions, like inviting artists to our homes, so like inviting artists to work with and to commission, really changed for me because of thinking of in the decision making and how do we work together? How do you work and live together at this point? Because during the whole process, we were like constantly on each other. And that kind of also led me to think about what it could mean to host an exhibition or like an artist or like the artwork or all of it together. And this is like a big question that I'm asking myself at the moment and that I decided to take on with me in the projects that I'm doing and that I'm kind of evolving also within an institution like Kunsthalle Basel that has a whole different scale. Legacy, history, and everything, but what it means to curate exhibitions the same way than we did from one small space to a larger one. There's like other kind of exhibitions. Yeah, we also like leave the exhibitions to every part of the house we could. Just like some other shows that we had, and here was like for an exhibition within an institution to think about what it meant to host inside of an institution. So I started also curating independently within different institutions in Switzerland or also abroad, but then thinking about doing an exhibition and thinking also about the public program that was behind it. So this was a solo exhibition by painter Hamish Farah, who it was in 2021, and I think it was the whole like big conversations about representation, portraiture, and then his proposal here was to kind of paint, taking over like portraits of Jesus and suffering, and thinking about Christianity and like this representation of suffering, but also related to how it's become like another to look at someone's sufferings, because we've been used to look at Jesus suffering like as a way of being Christian. And having like really played within this idea of like domesticity with this exhibition, I'm just gonna move a bit further along of like different projects that I did. But the idea of like really using the domestic aspect in not only as architecture, or as a way of curating, but really bringing it also in the discourse, and all of this being part of like a way of hosting in general, and like really creating a place where the artworks is being hosted and not only the artist. All right, and then that kind of like led me to work with the Hardwig Art Foundation, which is a new museum opening in Amsterdam. As the director is Beatrix Roof, and she kind of asked me this kind of question of like what it means to open a museum in a city where there are already plenty of institutions, like where there's no kind of like need, but then what it means to open a new space. And so being in conversation together with Beatrix, we kind of like also thought about this idea of like what it means to host in Amsterdam. And so doing a bit of research around the art communities in Amsterdam and thinking what kind of space is needed for a new museum to open, not only to present the collection, but what other kind of implicit it is. So the museum, physically, like the foundation started already its operations in terms of like collecting, but also doing commissioning projects. But the space is in construction at the moment, and it will open in a few years in what used to be like the former courthouse of Amsterdam, that is kind of like developed into an exhibition space. And for me, this was also kind of a big question of what it means to take over a space that is like also super heavily charged as a courthouse in Amsterdam and turn it into an exhibition space. And so before the start of the constructions, she asked me to curate one exhibition inside of the space, like a one last time opportunity for the public to come and see the space as a courthouse, which I found really bizarre, but also was really on for the challenge to do it. And instead of really opening an exhibition that would last like a month or a year, I decided that it will be only 24 hours, and that the whole exhibition will be rhythmed with a theater play, and that then we asked and commissioned artists and writers to send us like one scene of a play that the title would be court play, and just taking about TV drama shows or any idea of like what the court play could be, and then putting it together with the work of Ivan Cheng, who's an amazing artist and performer that kind of like edited this whole theater play with all the different scenes that we had, and created this performance on 24 hours long in the space. And for us, it was really the only way this space could be visited, such as a courthouse, for one last time. It wouldn't be just for an exhibition, but it needed to be activated around a long performance or a theater. And so here you see one kind of moment of the play. We also edited and published a book with all of this text. And then above in the upper floors, then we had selected some artists to come do site-specific installations. We had, for example, here Akwitami, who is in residency now in Maastricht, I think. and whom we invited to come and use the space and do the work that they do with the Xerox printing machine, and inviting people to create a zine on the play, like during these 24 hours. The public was invited to come do a printing and then publishing this like self-published zines. Here is an installation by Mireille Lee and Oscar Carr, taking over like what this was one of the courtroom, and kind of really changing it and bringing this aspect of like this sculptures installation that talked about maybe more like ecological justice in this context. Yeah, and here now the project of Kunsthalle Basel that I started a bit than a year ago, and thinking about how could this all can inform the new position, and like how can we turn this institution that has such a big legacy and history into something that is a bit more up to date with like bringing these questions on, and slowly kind of realized that it was about reinventing or recreating a new community around the Kunsthalle, and making sure that the message that we bring in and the way that we do is still in conversation and in contact with the younger art scene, or like the younger art generation of the city, but also of the area. Because I think for many years it has been kind of this really stapled institution that we look at, but we don't really, people had like a bit of a hard time to directly connect with, because it was seen as like kind of unreachable. And that brought back my questions and research that I had in the beginning of what it means to be a host as an institution, and to bring it there. And so first exhibition that I curated were like mainly about taking over like the program that I inherited from my predecessor, but then also engaging and re-engaging in this conversation. So for example, with Guylaine Leung, we had to restart the whole conversation with the beginning, because the first questions that I asked them was like what it means for you to host the public with your exhibitions. And it was a bit really hard, but then we had to, hopefully we managed to do it on time, because with Guylaine it's all about prompts and there's not really kind of object making. So we could change the whole exhibition in presenting this one. There is really like also bringing these questions of what it means to work as an artist, what it means to be a mother, but also what it means to kind of bring this labor into the public space. And so like now there's just like some slides of the exhibitions that we did, but here we're like kind of really creating, still with these questions of bringing more people in and recreating like a new discourse, or reconnecting with the local community. This was an exhibition on the back wall, so it's a project that takes on like the public space in Basel, and leaving also this sort of vulnerability to the artworks, and just being in the public space for a full year and 10 months that were there. And some like local exhibitions that we did there, but also like talking about these direct kind of performance events, or like these moments of like gathering. So here was a conversation between a reading of Toyin Oji-Odutula and Lynette Yadombomake that they did like wrote a story regarding the exhibition, and made this like kind of public lecture in doing it. So like all of these kind of questions of really creating a new community, and like not creating a new community, but reinforcing the existing one, but also still opening up to others, was really kind of crucial moment also in the conversations that we have in terms of institutions in Europe, or in Switzerland in particular. And here also creating maybe a program that is in direct contact with the local community during summers, and really using different spaces of the building as a display, or like as an event space as well. And really kind of being there, and like most of the work that we do, and the way that, I mean, relate also a lot with what Amal said, is always like commissioning new works and like pushing the artist to create new pieces and to develop into this project into something that we can present. And that takes also kind of like a lot of time and patience, but also a lot of trust when you're doing. And having this kind of like direct connection with the artist is also something that I kind of lean towards more into what I do. So also like taking on like different genres of spaces. So using the backyard of the institution as an event space, and here was a concert, a young duo artist named New York that we invited to do like a performance that started inside the exhibition and then that leaked outside during like an event that we did. We also decided to do this like twice, and then started like my own program for this year. So my program at the Kunsthalle started in January, and there I could really like with the artists that I invite. Here is a local artist named Marie Matouche, who decided to work with sculptures and representation and transforming the space into something a bit really more still. That was the first time since I think 2012 that a local artist had an exhibition in Basel at the Kunsthalle. And I think that also kind of speaks about this idea of reconnecting with the community of Basel and really allowing them inside the institution and making the institution like a host for them as well. And not to say that there were like different artists who exhibited at the Kunsthalle, like from Basel who exhibited at the Kunsthalle, but always as part of a group exhibition or as part of a small commission that would be like on the outside of the space, but never inside. So here I think like starting my program with someone from Basel really kind of really bringing back and bridging this idea of like reconnecting the people in Basel with the space. This is another site of the exhibitions that we did. And here was another exhibition by Valentin Noujaim, who's a filmmaker, and kind of like decided to bring the cinema inside of the museum, and bringing like not only it's not video art, it's like purely a film that he did, and presenting a trilogy of films of his inside of the space. And I think it was also a lot of conversations, because when we did this exhibition, I mean, I think up until now, Valentin has been also kind of outspoken on like different like conflicts that was going on, and like also really posting a lot about Palestine and everything. And so the press kept on like coming and trying to attack the space and trying to kind of also not let this exhibition take place in Basel. I think in Basel is a very specific situation where I think the first like Zionist Congress happened in the 50s. This is also like where the whole Zionism started a bit in Europe. So it's really kind of a particular place to be able to also talk about this context. And the press is very behind, like kind of after us and looking at everything we do and posting about it. And we have like a big strong community that like really opposes, like a group of people that opposes every choice that I made so far. But I think as we're talking about the role of an institution of being a host, but I think moreover, I think the institution needs to protect its artists, and it needs to protect their message and also their work, and enable them to still keep on doing exhibitions and presenting the work the way they did it. I think the two other artists that I presented this year were artists that had their exhibition cancelled in different institutions, and that kind of also as not only as a solidarity, because these are artists I worked with before, but kind of decided to take the project back in Basel and to kind of mention it. Not to be, it's nowhere mentioned, but it's like also just giving them the capacity and like allowing them to still be artists in this condition. This is like the case of Dala Nasser, who is currently on view at the moment, and who this project was supposed to take place in a different institution in different shapes. And after hearing the cancellation was also the first moment where I was appointed in the job, so it was kind of like for me really clear to be able to still let her and make the project that she wants to do, and yet also voice the message that she wants to give at the same time. And here it's a construction of a church that was just destroyed by the Israeli army in south of Lebanon. It's like one of the oldest church of the region. And in the village of Canaan, Qana, and Canaan is known in the Bible because this is where Jesus performed his first miracle by turning water into wine. And so she went to this cave where the water was and like dipped all the fabrics inside of this water and then dyed it and creating this church that was also like now completely, even the ruins are not being, like you couldn't visit them. So this project was, I don't know, somehow like judged too much against, too anti-Semite somehow. I don't know why, but like we can like had her show cancelled, and then we decided to take it back here in Basel and to kind of still present it word, but also present the work for what it is. This is like a beautiful architectural work that we did, and another view. And the last show that we have on date is by Ser Serpas. And I just wanted to also speak about this because it circles back to Cherish. Ser is one of the co-founders of Cherish. And there's an artist that I worked with for many times. We did like her first exhibitions in a gallery. So for me, it was also kind of obvious to invite her again in Basel and to do this project that somehow was also was cancelled in the last year from a different institution because of her like co-positions. And here we're really talking about these representations of bodies and also like just what it makes to, it's all about printmaking and like painting making. The way that she paints is like bringing two canvases together when they're wet and then separating them, creating like the original and the double. And really activating this space. So during Art Basel, we had a series of performances that were like open and taking place every day, and we like having really this position that the institution was there. Door opens every day from 10 until 9, and like also bringing people in and having them stay for the performances, for the exhibitions, but really kind of position ourselves in the city or elsewhere as well in Switzerland as a place where you would go and stay all the time. It was like a collaboration that we did with the performance troupe theater from Tbilisi, and it was like also bringing this idea that we did in Hardwig and creating the theater play inside the museum and inside the exhibition. So here was kind of like thinking about the same way and bringing a different kind of context, a theater performance company from a different context and bringing them here and like trying to think about what it means to activate the spaces. And I think to finish again with like another like activation of the space with a music performance that we like by Le Duc, who's a French young musician, and we're like really bringing in, and really I think all of this kind of like about running this these circles of exhibitions and projects that we did was really kind of to sort of think about different ways that, or different strategies to kind of activate it and to really bring different people from different communities, but in a task that I'm doing now, and I'm kind of like doing this research of like how to recreate a community that has been existing for so long and that has been also aging for so many years, and how to kind of regenerate it and bringing it into this idea of like still working within the legacy of a really esteemed institution, but in a different capacity, and just kind of like always evolving with time and positioning the institution not only as the host, but as a place where the artist still feels safe and protected to still being an artist and make new works, have the capacity of doing, but also of representing. Yeah, and I think this is the end for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohamed. Lots of questions, but I think since we are on the page with Gonçalo Basel, I'll start there. and kind of ask you
the live show, the slideshow. Sorry.
One of the things that we talked about in the last session, of course, was this the fallacy or the myth of institutional neutrality, which is bandied around as something that we are asked in various ways, implicitly or explicitly, to uphold. And certainly some of the projects that you've shared with us that you've done since the beginning of this year are very much kind of flying in the face of that. So much so that they're actually projects that are perhaps restituting or recovering things that have been cancelled elsewhere. And so I wanted to hear you speak a little bit more about the way in which you understand that, and also to perhaps put it in dialogue with another kind of set of concerns that I saw that you articulated between a kind of local and international, both in terms of artists who are showing in this institution now and have shown in this institution, but also in terms of audiences. What does that mean in Basel? What does a local audience mean in a place like Basel versus an international audience? And how do you see yourself as a mediator, but also in some ways as accountable to those dynamics that can be as specific as what a certain group in that city is demanding of you or objecting to, versus a program that you are making that speaks to all of us here and in many other places?
Yeah, I think like the institution of like the Kunsthalle Basel is specific. It's quite special because on its own, it's an institution that supports a lot and that really kind of enables to do for me to be able to do it. I think the context of Basel is not easy to navigate sometimes, but the institution itself, also this being private, and the board that we have really kind of supports all of these actions. And I want to also do the same and kind of use this capacity or like this freedom to some artists that maybe don't have it, or or didn't have it in different contexts. I mean, so just a way for me to give back as well, and to also share the same like a freedom that I have with them. And I think in terms of like the audience and the community that we're bringing, I think Basel is it's very small, and I think everybody knows it because of the fair. But outside of the fair, it's still like it has like a strong, like very young art community with the art school, but it's not as international as another institution in New York or London could be. So it's also like very, very small in terms of public. And I think for many years the focus was only on this 1 week in June, and less about the year long. And I think, but also really wanted to recreate, like to reconnect this, and to have like when I arrived, many artists or like art students in Basel was like never coming to the Kunsthalle, and we'd have to like kind of make them coming back, I think, and that was like kind of the goal of like how people could come and like just be able to come, leave, and come back, or this. That's the work that I do. Yeah.
Another sort of thread here, which was very interesting, is this kind of idea of adaptive use and adaptive reuse, from the apartment project with Cherish to Hartwig, and then of course to a kind of, I don't know the history of the building of the Kunsthalle Basel, but it seems like it is very much a building that is made for art to be shown. And so it would be interesting to hear you speak a little bit more about the ways in which you understand that kind of adaptive use, and the kind of the sort of histories that are activated, the kind of different modes of decision making that go into projects like that. We want to hear about conflicts with your flatmates, more specifically about things that people didn't like and didn't want to live with. So yeah, give us some juice.
Yeah, it wasn't easy every time, but for me, it's the way that I adapt for each project would say like a house is a house is a house. Like from Cherish to Hardwig to Kunsthalle, I see it all as one big house with like different types of roommates and flat, like that could be. And you know, I think working with the team at Kunsthalle Basel is this also. It was. I think it's easier than working with my flatmates. But yeah, it's all about having this conversation, and it's all about negotiation at the end, and see like what are the limitations of everybody and like what could be done, and just to make sure that everybody feels also like heard and that their boundaries are respected. And then I think it's just different scales, but the way that I do it is more or less similar. The most interesting for me was maybe the Hardwig Art Foundation, because it was really kind of starting from scratch, like a museum from scratch, but also really thinking. I was thinking about Charmini's presentation, but also with the museum in Colombo, where here in Amsterdam is quite the opposite. There's so many other institutions, so why does Amsterdam needs one more? That was kind of the main question, and like thinking about for who it is it for who's going to be going to this museum? Is it for the people in Amsterdam, or is it for the residents, like the kind of artists who are there for 2 years and then leaving, or is it for like the long-term public? So that was like a kind of a research to make into like creating a new house in a place where kind of like real estate is already kind of too much. And at the Kunsthalle Basel, it's different because it's really working within its history and its legacy.
Yeah. Again, I have more questions, but I also want to open it up to the room and, of course, to our online audiences. Are there questions that we have? Great. Thank you.
Hi, Mohamed. Thank you so much. I'm Shivansh. I run this Art Bag. The idea for Kunsthalle, which is like a non-connecting institution with temporary exhibitions, is really curious for me. And from the outside, it seems very utopian, where it makes sense, you know. So you don't have to collect, and you can try so much stuff. But I'd love to know if there are any limitations to it, because thinking of something like this in India, I would love to have it, but I'd love to know what the other side of the coin is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, when you think of a collection, you also like, whenever you think, like when I say the institution as a host, but when you have a collection, like maybe the collection will be like the ones that stays when everybody leaves. And so it's like also a different type of relation with it. Like maybe it's kind of in the circles and you work really closely with these works and this idea of like the collection making, which we don't have at the Kunsthalle Basel, and it feels kind of really all the time project kind of oriented. And this, for me, it's something that maybe I miss, and I would like try to think of what I can do to also create a format that very like kind of longs and stays. To also maybe not have like a physical collection, but I don't know, to think of like maybe these commissions, works or exhibitions, to see them kind of also travel and to still having them parts of the institutions in a way. So this will be kind of like the collection of the Kunsthalle. Yeah, and I don't know, like the Kunsthalle is like a space that is governed by an art association. It's like the oldest art association there is in Switzerland, but also the largest. When we have like each members pay and like kind of also have something to say. And so when we go back to what was said before about the institution being neutral, that's also something that we hear from some people from the association being like, oh no, we need to be neutral for that. But then again, we'd have to find other ways to not be neutral and to still bring, and to still, as I said again, allow the artist being an artist to the way they want to be. Yeah.
Okay, and my small follow-up, like very related to what you said, was: is there anything else you're trying to change within this model, or like want to work on within your new Stinktab?
I mean, I think it's maybe nothing groundbreaking or new in different contexts and things, but for me, like the next step would be that the institution is free also for everybody. So to really kind of open the door, and that's kind of a longer discussions to have in Switzerland, because I think yeah, it's, I know that it is already the case in different institutions, like across the globe, but it's not yet there. So this is a next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go ahead, quickly.
One, Rajan.
You've turned on. Yeah, there you go.
I'm Rajan, and my question was that.
This has to be on.
I'm sorry?
It has to be on because the video is trying to get it.
Yeah, now it's okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rajan. I really like the way you told your underdog story because I think we all go through phases when we're not that successful and we're starting and no one believes in the efforts. But you were very clear and you made it seem very simple that, you know, this was a house. And but I'm sure that there was a lot of pain and hard work as well between the 5 years you started Cherish and when you moved into Kunsthalle. So could you tell me, how did you deal with the first year heartbreaks or problems, or I don't want to go into the problems, but what was your mechanism to cope up with the problems you faced in the first 1 or 2 years without making it sound very funny or simple? Yeah, thank you.
And because you're going to answer that, can I add a
Yes.
short part B?
Thank you.
So, you know, coming to Basel for so many years, one understands the structure, especially of Kunsthalle Basel, because a dear friend led it for over 10 years. I was wondering whether they think of you, just wondering, I don't know, of course, whether they think of, you know, an individual like you who's heading the institution as an outsider, insider. Are you still an outsider within the system? And then maybe to answer.
You guys are not sparing me. No, I think to answer the first question, I mean, yeah, I think everybody was really surprised, and myself too, when I was appointed, because I didn't come from an institutional background. I never kind of like started as a curatorial assistant or assistant curator, and then like going up, I just kind of opened my own space, and I just like did it by making, and then also like this is what I kind of promised to bring, is also not kind of an institution that is, I mean, very, I would like maybe bring like maybe a sort of like entire institution kind of like flair to the work that I do, and maybe that's also kind of like convince the community, and that's what also I'm doing or like aiming to do so far. Yeah, there was like from the get-go, there was also a lot of troubles that happened, but also I think, as I said, Basel is a very specific and very complex city that has like a very long history, and they kind of really stuck up. So the moment I was appointed, I was also kind of had a lot of racist and Islamophobic and attacks by the press, but that kind of really like the return was just so like this big solidarity from the art world, like like globally, and having people like standing up and being like, hey, but like we stand up with him, and also the board being like, I think I must say, and the board is amazing at the Kunsthalle, and they've been also very supportive from the beginning, and so together we kind of like starting in this city. I do feel still like a bit as an outsider institutionally, but also in the city of Basel. But I think from this year of what I did, and like also doing things my own way, and kind of also seeing the response to it, just really encouraged me to do more, and then to come with like, I don't really come with the thesis to explore or to kind of like think about it. My relation with the artists is what kind of drives me to what I do, and I think by having them live together, I mean, my closest friends up to today are like artists I worked with, and we started working together, and then now we kind of, as I said, one artist moved with us at Cherish after this like 1 year residency, and now we live together for 3 years. So it's really like this collaboration that is ongoing, but that starts with an exhibition, but then leaks to like our private life, and until now. So this is my way of instituting, as you say. Yeah.
Thank you. That also makes me think and want to ask you about commissioning, which is something you said you've done a lot and believe in as part of your curatorial practice. And you know, to ask you to share with us a little bit more about that process. What has that looked like in these different contexts? There are institutions that are great at commissioning work, and certainly others that are very ill-equipped for it, even if they want to do it. And I think that's something that you know, is really significant for an artist and a curator to have that kind of collaboration and to be able to build, again, many times iteratively over time. But it'll be great to hear about some of these relationships and projects that you've commissioned over the years.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, it's important to commission because also just the context in which I operate is very privileged. I mean, I'm in Switzerland, working in an institution, or even having project space in Switzerland was allowing us to commission new works and to really kind of, I think, support an artist by making them able to like still being an artist and like making works and producing these works is very essential for me. And this is also just the way I like to work and just to kind of be in the conversation of a project from the beginning. And I mean, I think when we have seen like like the exhibition that we commissioned by Kaiser von Zeipel, for example, here with the Cat Studio exhibition, then we kind of like developed this whole project together, and we asked for a lot of fundings to be able to produce and then to ship the work from New York. But then I was really happy to see that this work was then acquired by the Perez Museum in Miami, and like part of like her big like kind of retrospective exhibition that then it kind of also for us meant so much because as a project space to have like this sort of, I mean, yeah, like reverence like to Miami and like to go all the way up there was really, really special. I mean, here also commissioning a new play that we built with text also is also particular. It's just very like for me, it's the core of curating. It's really, I much rather engage in a conversation with an artist rather than putting up a group show about an idea that I have and then selecting artworks and just picking artworks together and putting them there and being like, this is my idea. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's great. And I think people do it like really well. And it's, I also do it sometimes, but I like here. But I much rather think of a project with an artist from the beginning and develop it. And so like, yeah, I'm a bit, I'm always wanting more. So I'm always telling the artist, yeah, but really, what was this? For Dallas project, like this big church, I don't know, like talking about this construction in wood, and it was like, oh, but maybe it could be glass. And no, until the point it was like, no, this is not realistic. So I think it also comes from this of like looking just to enable the artist to be as ambitious as they can in their work that they're making in the presentation, and always to be like a yes man for their ideas, or truly to kind of, you know, we'll find a way to make it happen. And I think that's my that's my motto. Obviously.
Great. Other questions in the room? There's a question there.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I am Nubina, and I run a project known as Disappearing Dialogues. I just wanted to know that you've been calling yourself as an outsider. You're still feeling like that, but you have thought about getting local artists into the institution. And it's interesting that you're talking about how they can build their capacities, how they can put in their dialogues forward. The other thing which I would like to know from you is one space which you spoke about was Cherish, which was an intimate space. And here you have a space which is within an institution. So when we're talking about hierarchies, breaking hierarchies, and as well as the audience, because there's going to be a difference in audience within an intimate space. And so what has been your experience through it? How have you addressed it? Because I think activating spaces which you spoke about, these two spaces are very different, and you really have to rethink your whole practice process as well as how you would do it.
Absolutely, and to be honest, it's also something I'm figuring out at the moment. It's been like a little bit than a year, and I'm at the Kunsthalle, and it's something that I'm asking myself how to kind of bring this kind of intimacy, or like the kind of still feel a sense of we're close together, of like intimate within a big institution like this, and that is directed to a public, so like needs to be also open to everybody. And what Amal said, not for you, but for all, but for everyone. I think it's what we kind of expect, but how to create this that is also at the same time for everyone, but also for you. And that when it comes with an exhibition, but also around the programming around it, or some like the series of performances in the yard. There is like people coming every summer, and it's kind of a small group that comes, or like a party in general. So every types of scales to kind of be able to put this at the institution. I think it's important to be, if you can, have like a wide range of programming and like of events that you could do. But
has there been a difference in audience also, like when you had audience coming to your intimate space and to?
Yeah, I think it really changes all the time. Like the audience that comes to an opening is really like different from the ones coming to like a talk. There's trying to, or like a small performance, but it's quite wide in range. I haven't found like I think there's always the people who come all the time, but it's always kind of changing. So this, I think it will be like the big challenge that for me to like really manage to create, or like to keep like a source of intimacy inside of the programming and of an institution like this. But also maybe, you know, at this scale, it's maybe not possible, I don't know. I'm still trying, but we'll see. Yeah.
Other questions from Kamini?
Kamini Sani. I was just looking increasingly at how artists are being cancelled by institutions whenever they foreground narratives that we're all uncomfortable with, or the institutions are uncomfortable with. So is there any way that the museum community itself can come forward to kind of resist? Because again, we saw Australia cancelling their artist for the Venice Pavilion. So we are seeing this increasingly. He's taken back?
Taken back, yeah. Yeah.
So can we kind of form these pressure groups where, or can, for example, what was your board's reaction to the fact that you took two artists who had been actually cancelled from other institutions?
You know, it's really funny because one of the, like when we opened the shows, one of the journalists who wrote like these articles, who tried to really kind of cancel, came to see the shows a bit unannounced like this in the morning. And yeah, and at the end he said it was the best shows he saw at Kunsthalle, so, you know. And then he didn't publish anything, but so, so yeah, but it was kind of funny, but they come to see, and I think the, just to be able to still do it, to do these exhibitions, I think it's already a lot. I know, but again, that like in Switzerland and Basel, still very privileged compared to like different geographies or different spaces. But I think at the end it's just like to prove them wrong and to see that the exhibitions that we do is really also like relevant and speaks to everybody, and that just doesn't differ of like someone's political ideas. And like if the work is political, then be it is also political. I mean, I think, you know, an institution is also needs to also be political. Yeah, we like an institution needs to be so reactive to its time and to be like in conversation and discourse about what's going on. And I think that's what artists do in their work and their thinking, and an institution is here to represent them and to support them. So if we decide not to do this, not to do that, then we just go to some type of art that is very kind of analytical, but yeah, it's different. I don't know, but it's good to put pressure always.
Are there questions in the back if I'm missing folks on that side of? I'm curious, Mohammed, what were the visiting hours at Cherish? Could people come on weekends, or what was the...
Yeah, I mean, it was open by appointment, and the Saturday it was open all day.
Okay.
But you know, the thing is, when we started Cherish, then COVID happened, the pandemic, so everybody went on lockdown. Nobody could do, like every museum or exhibition space was closed. And we didn't have to close because it was our home. And we had like this limitation, we could have like 5 people at home at a time. And so we started to organize dinners, a lot of dinners. And mind you, I can't cook. None of my roommates can cook, but yet we were making dinners. And like
your eyes.
Yeah, and then people could come see the show. So like the artist was also hosting, making like cooking for us. I mean, I don't know, sometimes it was like just pizza party for everybody. But then it was like every day a different dinner and a different group of people looking at the show. So it was mainly at night.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm Ahon Guptu, theatre maker, producer, and learning about the art world. And especially with a place and a concept like Cherish, where you have full autonomy as to what you want to do with the space that you have, what are some things that you maybe tried and were ambitious about that didn't quite work, and that maybe you've come back to or you're still thinking through? I'm just basically curious as to like when you have full control of space and resources in your living room, what still doesn't work?
I mean, that's like something personal to me. I think it's really, I realized that I need this kind of also human connection with the artist to be able to work with. I had invited like an artist whom I really respect and the work I love, but I didn't know them so well at the time. And so invited them in our house for a month. And also it just really showed that it wasn't clicking and it wasn't matching. And it was, as I said, it was COVID lockdown, so we were really in the house. And that's when tensions with my roommate also appeared, because they were like, what the fuck? And I mean, the show was great, and I'm very proud of the show, but it's just the whole experience kind of really, you know, and I think that really kind of just proved me that I need this kind of, all this kind of like connection, but really not only think that like, oh no, the work is great, like I'm sure they would be great too, but to really kind of make more research about that. But that's my way of working as well. But it's something that we had to think a lot about it, because it was really inviting some people to our home to live with us, but not only, but to put my roommates also at risk at this, like, you know, at this kind of exposure. Yeah, but
I think we might be at time. If there's a last question, a burning question, we can take that. I think folks are ready to close. Thank you again, Mohamed.
Thank you everyone.
And we have a 30-minute tea break, and I know there's tea outside. Hopefully it's not raining anymore, but we will see you back at 3:30 for Akanksha's presentation.